All right. For those of you guys that are tuning in from YouTube, hello, welcome to Wyckoff Sundays episode 16. This officially marks 4 months of Wyckoff Sundays, which is awesome. We love to see it. Genuinely, I think that, again, we've called out some really awesome moves. I can't believe it's already been 4 months. Really crazy to know, like how time flies, man. Time is just flying. We're almost at the end of May, right? My birthday here is in like 2 weeks, by the way. So it's crazy that we're already like halfway through the year, which is pretty much my birthday mark. So yeah, I mean, like, damn, I can't even lie, but I've been super happy with the results. This year has been great, from a trading perspective, and not just from a trading perspective, but also from a student perspective. Like, people have been killing it, especially over the last couple of weeks. I feel like the fruits of people's labor is really starting to show up. And obviously, we know we're not done yet. The job's not finished. We're still pushing. We're still working. But it's awesome to kind of just look back now at this point, that we are 4 months into, doing this whole new series, doing this whole new, really restarting this channel as well. And so yeah, it's just awesome to see, and we're just gonna keep pushing for bigger and bigger levels. So yeah, really, really happy and grateful for all you guys that are tuning in and all you guys that are on the live streams as well. In terms of, like right here doing Wyckoff Sundays live. If you guys want to be on these lives, make sure you guys tap into the Discord. That will be in the bio. And you guys can also join the community and be with a bunch of like-minded individuals that are all, checking in on the markets every single day, working together. So yeah, so I'll see you guys in there if you guys hop in. But yeah, let's go ahead and start out our Sunday. All right. So basically here, we're going to start off obviously reviewing what we were looking for from the week previous, what ended up playing out, what didn't, what could we have seen better, and where should we have adjusted, or whatever it might be, or, where did things go well, right? So let's go ahead and tap in. So obviously, as always, we start with dollar, right? Main thing that we spoke about with dollar was two main scenarios last week, right? The first scenario being that we are obviously we're still looking for this bigger time frame potential accumulation, right? We want to see if this pullback here that's happening on dollar is going to eventually lead to a push towards 102, right, at the top of this red box, which is basically what we're looking for to see if that can happen. And so we spoke about two main scenarios, right? One scenario being this low right here on the 4 hour, right? That we saw happen, at the end of the week before. So we had this beautiful 4 hour institutional candle that was playing out that really swept through previous lows, right? Inside of a previous area where longing could happen. And so we spoke about this could potentially be the, zone that we could look for a type one entry model, right? So we spoke about that 4 hour candle right there. As soon as the market opened after our Wyckoff Sunday, we can see what ended up happening, right? So the 4 hour candle was right here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and mark it up again because obviously I do think that the second scenario we spoke about is what's going to play out long term, but it was really cool to see how well this zone played out. So we could see there the market opened right here in this candle. We saw the market sell right towards that 4 hour candle and boom, ended up reacting beautifully, right, over the next couple hours or over the next day, basically when we ended up hitting the top of this impulse up, right? So we did manage to get that, pretty much buy from that level pretty much spot on, to be honest, right? As you guys can see, that is the 4 hour candle right there. That we were speaking about, and to see where it ended up playing out, just giving such a nice reaction. To be honest, to me, that was probably like one of the best moves of the week, right? Obviously, we did have the sell-off that ended up playing out nicely, but it played out through a gap, right? It played out through Asian session. I mean, it just wasn't really the most ideal opportunity. But seeing this right when the market opens, that's pretty typical for a lot of the setups that we look at here. So the timing was a little bit better there for dollar as well, seeing how the market just reopened there, right? So that was really our first scenario, right? As you guys can see, this is where we drew it up, right? To see that, and then to see us head towards this imbalanced area. That was right there on the 4 hour time frame, and obviously that's exactly how it played out. We traded right into the imbalanced area right here, right? And just barely, and then we ended up selling off from there. So really dope to see. And then we obviously had the second scenario, which I think is what might play out this week, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, which is the potential for, another drive lower here. As you guys can see, that was the second scenario we spoke about, from this high, pushing us down to create a new low, and then maybe we can get a long-term buy from there. We'll see. We'll talk about that in a bit though. All right. So that was dollar, right? Those were the two main scenarios. After we had that first buy up, I mean, we haven't really done too much, right? So not really much moves happened during the week for dollar. I feel like we just kind of been consolidating in this weird spot here for a while, and I think that's just simply because we are currently in the enticing phase and we're waiting for the manipulation phase to play out, right? That's just my theory. We'll talk about that in a bit though, right? So to align with that, we spoke about Euro USD, right? One of the things that we spoke about here was also spot on. As you guys can see, we were talking about this high, being ran. We said that this high was likely not going to hold because there was like wicks and stuff like that that were playing out in that level. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's what we said. High here to be taken, right? It does look like already like that high here to be taken, right? Up. We spoke about we wanted to see points of liquidity here and here get taken. This high here to be taken, right? It does look like already. So yeah, I believe that's what we said, as you guys can see, right? And so here we can see on Euro USD, right? That pretty much is what aligned with the top of the week. Was seeing us just barely tapping up above this area of liquidity, getting back into this area right here of manipulation. It did it really beautifully, right? What we can see though is that on the 4 hour, it did end up doing it as just a wick. But when we look at these smaller time frames, right? 2 hour time frame, beautiful institutional candle. 1 hour time frame, beautiful institutional candle, right? 30-minute time frame, beautiful institutional candle there as well. I believe even the 15 might have one here. Yeah, just barely, although it doesn't close above, but still really, really good, right? So lower time frames didn't have a great candle, but the rest of them did. And again, like we said, that did end up being the high of the week, to align with the shorts back down, right? So yeah, still really clean, right? And even when it came to the idea with dollar, right? I mean, with Euro USD, it wasn't as clean for it, right? We can see that here the 4 hour candle for Euro USD isn't as great as the 4 hour candle that we had here with dollar. This one was definitely a lot cleaner with how it was made, right? This is the same relative high, which is mostly the wicks doing the damage there, right? So not really ideal, but regardless, still a really good, point of interest to play off of. But again, like we said, for Euro USD specifically, where is it? Right here, right? This was really the zone that we called out. Was just seeing that sweep all the way up above those highs and then getting the push back down, right? So I do think for this coming week, well, we'll talk about in a second what I think I can see for the coming week. What other pairs did we talk about here? So we had EU. We had, yeah, as we spoke about here, right? We had EU, like again, with that sweep, right? And then I believe we probably spoke about GU as well. So for GU, we spoke about it a little bit differently, I believe. We were saying really if we were going to look for oh yeah, what I was saying here was that Euro USD looks a lot weaker for the sells on that, right? So for dollar buys compared to GU, because GU itself was obviously in a much higher place, right? Already having taken out previous highs and stuff like that. I don't think we actually called out a direction for it at that point just yet, right? So for GU though, it was pretty chill, right? For NU, one of the main things that we spoke about was that we were most likely going to see all of this liquidity up here get taken, right? And so that's what we spoke about here for NU. I believe it's right there. Given the amount of liquidity that's here, right? It could be the case that, again, this is our first drive, this is our second drive, and we're waiting for our third drive to happen above this high, maybe above this high, will probably be what I'd be looking for, right? So something like that, right? To then go ahead and drive us to the downside would be basically what I would want to do, for NU. So NU I do like just because of the buildup of liquidity there. If you did want to go for dollar shorts at some point, NU might be a good idea, just given like, especially if we haven't taken this liquidity and let's say we pull back to this level. So that was the part right there, right? So this is what we were saying would probably be good for dollar shorts, that NU would probably be the best. And we could see exactly what ended up happening with NU was exactly what we spoke on there, right? So we ended up leaving that liquidity intact for the beginning of the week. And then we ended up seeing the market, sell off, end up doing a distribution that turned into a reaccumulation here, getting right back into these previous areas of imbalance inside of price, right? And again, this was the zone that we were really saying would probably be the ideal zone to look for the longs, especially if, like we said, that liquidity here had not yet been taken, right? So again, really, really awesome to see how well that played out. I mean, we just draw squiggly lines and then they just happen, to be honest. I mean, that's what we do here on Wyckoff Sundays, right? I mean, tell me that isn't beautiful right there. Like that's the drawing, that's what happened. Like literally to the T, what we were looking for on NU. So awesome to see as well. If anybody was watching Wyckoff Sundays, that was a really simple one to go for. And it did happen on Monday as well during London session, right? So London session there really gave the best opportunity for that long to play out. And again, that aligns with if you were looking for dollar shorts for NU to probably be the best one, right? So we'll see how this ends up going. But yeah, we'll talk about what we could potentially see for the coming week. But I think we're getting to a good place here, so we'll talk about
I
it in a
think
bit.
that this level could be really good for longs if we haven't taken that liquidity, right? If we have taken, with multiple drives to the downside, maybe we're seeing a spring happen now. If we do
Yes, and then we spoke about UCAD, and UCAD was also spot on.
potential accumulation, with multiple drives to the downside, maybe we're seeing a spring happen now. If we do see a scenario where dollar actually does hold this level here, and we do just come back into that 4 hour candle that we saw earlier, right? Then maybe USD CAD.
Right? So as we can see here, with USD CAD, this was really what we were talking about, right? So we said that at the beginning of the week that this looked like we were probably getting a potential accumulation scenario. We were seeing institutional candles print here, right? There was an institutional candle that printed here that we took our longs from back in the day, right? And then there's another institutional candle that was printing there. So it really did look like this low had the potential to be a potential spring if dollar did end up just, again, holding that 4 hour candle that we were talking about. And obviously, as you guys can see, that did end up being the bottom of the week there for it, right? So Sunday opened, we ended up getting at Sunday open, right here, right? We saw the market sell off, get down towards, that last push to the downside there, and then ended up shooting up towards a new high, right? So really, really beautiful to see. And then obviously we did end up getting a pullback on Tuesday, Wednesday. To get the next, big push to the upside, right? Reaccumulation happened here, right? And we just been booming. So now we're really creating these highs here, right? We've got like liquidity sitting, across the board here, I would say, with those three highs. So yeah, potentially this can actually continue, but we spoke about
As it
that pretty
is,
perfectly.
right? And then we end up seeing price retrace, right? And then maybe we can go ahead and long from that level there. That's actually something I think is not too bad. So I'll definitely be monitoring dollar in this area here, right? Let's go ahead and mark it up as well. Oops.
So yeah, I think it
Yeah,
just
let's go ahead and
missed the
mark it up.
zone that I was technically looking for, which
Probably
was that
somewhere down
two
in
hour
there
candle there.
would be what we would want. So I'm gonna put the alert there. Good stuff. So yeah, that's
So yeah, we ended up seeing that zone there, right? Price just it was really close to reaching where I wanted. Again, it just ended up holding this Sunday level here, right? Basically made equal lows to be honest. So it was a bit tough for me to really position, but definitely again, when we talked about the bigger time frame narrative, the bigger time frame scenario for this to be a potential accumulation, getting back into previous zones over here, right? I mean, it does look like that has some potential to actually be a bottom in the market. So we'll see what ends up happening when we do get above these highs, but we'll talk about that later on, like I said, right? So that's USD CAD. Next we spoke about was USD Chef, right? So we spoke about, again, really the same zone that I'm looking for is down here, right? We did say there was some possibility of this low holding. I believe it didn't hold, if I'm not mistaken, but we also didn't reach our zone just yet, right? So USD Chef over here. Right, yeah. So it didn't end up holding, right? We do see that it did hold for the beginning of the week, made a bunch of equal highs up here, and then now we're kind of slowly coming down. So we'll see what happens in this zone, later on, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. But there wasn't really too much of an entry model there for USD Chef, right? And then USD JPY, we saw that huge sell-off that started to happen with JPYs. We said most likely these equal lows and this high volume was not going to hold, and that we'd probably end up seeing a sweep lower before we ended up buying back up, right? I believe that's what we said.
take this. We do see a kind of a nice zone here, right? But in general, it's like this push to the downside here, like this whole move down is our, basically where I feel like we'll be retesting in general to go ahead and, see this buy up. So if we could see like another drive down, that'd be great to really go ahead and see this.
And so we can see with UJ, I mean, again, just drawing the squiggly lines and they're just happening, right? We ended up getting a really nice buy up from those levels. So this was the level here prior, right? Market opened. We had a sell off down into the wicks. We made another wick and we shot up. And then we ended up seeing this big sweep down. And that ended up being the bottom of the week so far. So I do wonder if that can be, where we're going to end up bottoming out. But I do think, again, if this is an accumulation, I mean, there's definitely the chance of this being our high volume low, right? We have a little bit of a lower one there, and then we come down here, and then we end up getting an even lower one. We'll see, right? Obviously, again, we're not talking forecast yet. We're just doing the review. All right. But that's that. All right. Then we went into metals, and we also got metals spot on as well, right? So we'll show here what we were looking for. So we obviously spoke about the longs that we already had
Model
from the week before, right? This is from where we were trading for FOMC, and we
for
had a nice
FOMC,
long up from
right?
that level.
I did mean to take partials on this, but again, I just forgot about this account. here, our live sessions, right? So that people can see it on the screen.
And so yeah, so anyways, so here we spoke about the longs from here, right? We said that though most likely that this has actually some potential to be a top, and that we would most likely actually be able to get down, breaking that low, getting deeper into the bigger point of interest, and then from there looking for the longs. So I believe that, where do we say that? Let's just find that moment.
Well, I obviously take my trades on my phone, right? Just look at, we actually have had lows that are creating new highs pretty nicely. Although the new highs that are being created are not that strong, right? As we can see. So I'm really not too, like, I'm kind of in the middle with this. Personally, if I were to choose a perfect world, I wouldn't want, like, obviously what I'm looking for is a reaccumulation. I want to see price get back into this level, reaccumulate, and give us a new long potentially, right? There is obviously a chance for this to be the high, like the distribution to just be the high, and then we just sell off all the way down to, like, break the order flow of 4K. Some people seem to think that that's the play. Don't accumulate inside of this point. We definitely had a great reaccumulation happen in this. We had a good buy
I just
setup
want to show
because
exactly
the
where we
low
have our
again,
squiggles.
zone,
Okay, here's our
boom.
squiggles.
Okay, we
So
could
yeah, so we just wanted to see the point here. Basically that low where we had our entry from. We didn't think it was the bottom. We thought that most likely we would get another sweep. Personally, I did want to get deeper, like I said, into that level before going ahead and buying. But what ended up happening in reality was we did end up obviously creating a new low. So we could see here that this zone, let me take this off. This is from our lesson just earlier. So yeah, we did end up seeing that, that high, like we said, that wasn't very strong, ended up being the top, and then we sold off, right? We end up seeing the market go ahead and, just barely break below, this level right here, right? Seeing a big candle down, right? Before then starting to see the push to the upside happening over here. Isaac, I'm just realizing your glasses right now, bro. What are you I'm so dead. He's a cool guy. He's a cool guy. But yeah, so over here, like I said, right, we end up getting this nice, drive down, right, that happened, below that low. Super fire. And that ends up being the bottom for the week, right? So again, our instinct that this wasn't going to be the bottom. One of the reasons we spoke about this not being the bottom was the lack of an institutional candle at the bottom here on the 4 hour. We did see it obviously on other time frames, like which is why we took the trade in the first place. Like we have a 1 hour candle there, I believe. But the 4 hour ended up having just a wick. So we did say that that most likely was not going to be a bottom. So we'd probably end up seeing another sweep. And then we spoke about the targets, right? We spoke about the potential target over here in this high, right?
is just get some buyer wipeouts in this zone, right? And then from there, look to long up into, like, obviously the liquidity up here with
Right. So we said most likely sweep out and then go up and head up towards that liquidity up there. And obviously, we have already taken most of that liquidity. We're very, very close to reaching the top of that point. So this was our target that we spoke about on that call. And like I said, we took out most of these highs, but we haven't quite gotten above there yet, which I do think that we will likely do. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll talk about forecast here in a bit. Right. But that was last week, right? So again, great setup there for our idea. And then we spoke about silver, right? Silver ended up being the one that really played out beautifully for us. Because what I said was that if we can end up holding these relatively equal highs up here, that we would most likely be getting a pullback, right? Into the levels, and then from there going ahead and going long. We'll see exactly if I drew squiggles or not. I think we did.
they're relatively equal, right? So maybe silver could be a better option instead of using gold as a position. For longs, again, I do think silver in general is like holding better than gold. So I personally would rather see that, but we're gonna have to see what happens. I do think that this level here could potentially be where we hold on to.
So right there, right? That's what we spoke about there. And yeah, so silver ended up coming right back into that level, honestly, beautifully. This was a zone we just pointed out right there on silver, right? So price ended up again holding those relatively equal highs, pulling back pretty much into the week, holding this level, and then just pretty much longing from there. And it did it really, really aggressive, from that level as well. So again, just a beautiful, beautiful call out from again Wyckoff Sundays there, right? And then we said the other option could be again another sweep out of these lows, but that didn't
Below
end up
70
happening there, right?
basically, or
I
as
believe
a
that's what we said, right?
position. So I personally would rather see that, but we hold on to, for silver. If not, then again, maybe we do actually, yeah, actually maybe a spring can make sense because we do have equal lows here. But
Yeah, that was
yeah,
the second
so either
option we were looking
one, like,
for.
below 70 basically, or two, we might hold this level here, right? Again, I do kind of have to make two possibilities for this one, but in general, bullish on silver and in the future here, right?
So yeah, again,
Let me see
another
here
great
what
call
shit.
out, another great call out there from that, right? So there's that. And then we spoke about indices and really just telling you guys how indices look bullish AF. And that most likely I was not going to be really touching them. Unless we had like again like proper structure, really start to head towards the downside. Otherwise, we'd just be looking for longs. I didn't end up touching indices last week, I believe. I was looking to, but we didn't end up doing them at all. So yeah, for me, indices are just not really in the place that I personally want to trade them. So I've kind of just been not looking at them. Then from there, we spoke about the fact that most likely BTC was going to be hitting 80K. We said that we were likely going to be going up. I don't know if we said we would go down after that, but that there was a possibility for it. Oh, it looks like we spoke about this buy zone here for ETH.
Down, and then we do end up engulfing it back up. So it could be that that's a manipulation phase. We get a mitigation and then we go long. That's kind of how ETH is looking right now, right? But obviously, only time will tell when it comes to
So here's our
to
markup
ETH,
there.
right? Same with
There's our
BTC.
squiggles.
We get
Yeah,
a
that's the same markup that we made last week, right? So we said impulse up, right? Maybe we get a pullback back into this level and then we go long, and then we could see that's exactly what ETH has been doing so far, right? So most likely, I mean, with the looks of it, this is a sell to buy motion. We broke these highs, meaning we broke the order flow, and then we come back into the previous order flow and long. I do think the most likely scenario is we go up. Like, yes, we haven't necessarily broken this high, but price is overall bullish, and we're creating more of a reaccumulation type price action. So I think ETH is about to break 2.5K, probably this week. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, that's ETH there, BTC. And that's pretty much everything, right? And then we talk about, I think, GN maybe. Oh no, we didn't really talk about it to be honest. But yeah, that was that. So again, I think that what do we call out perfectly? Dollar we called out perfectly, EU we called out perfectly, NU we called out perfectly, UCAD we called out perfectly, UJ we also called out perfectly. Gold we called out perfectly, silver we called out perfectly, literally across the board on Wyckoff Sundays last week. So actually Wyckoff Sundays last week was a gem for sure, as you guys can see. So beautiful one to study for sure for those of you guys that are obviously in your learning phases. Again, just really, really awesome plays all around. Just drawing the squiggly lines and the squiggly lines come true. No indicators, just squiggles. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go into the what we can end up seeing coming for this week. All right, guys. So as always, we're gonna start off with dollar. Before we actually get into the price action, we're gonna talk real quick about the news events that could be affecting this week. Right. So I'm gonna go ahead and refresh this. Oh wait, let's bring this back. Without the range, we were looking at that for a lesson. All right, awesome here. So as you guys can see, right? Oh, wait. Monday. Okay, I guess they changed it. Oh, they changed. They put it here. This used to be on Monday. I guess now it's on Tuesday. So on Tuesday we're gonna have two main news events now, right? We're gonna have CPI, which obviously is gonna be most likely the major news event of the week. So this is where we're gonna want to be paying a lot of attention on is on Tuesday, right? Make sure you guys save your ammo for Tuesday. You know what I'm saying? In terms of your trades that you're taking, I do think that this is gonna be a key moment. And then from there, we also have the federal chair nomination vote on the same day. So that's going to be a big day. This is where we're basically going to see if Kevin Warsh is going to be, voted in as the Federal Reserve chairman, right? Chairperson, whatever, for a term, right? And we're going to see if, again, like from there, like obviously this is going to be the nomination from Trump. So could mean a lot of things, right? But again, it doesn't necessarily lead to, cuts being automatic just because, Trump put him in. Because again, there is a whole board that he's going to have to convince in order for that to happen, right? Now, anyways, from there, we're gonna have the PPI, right? And core PPI. So, like, again, still a big news event, not as big as CPI though. Thursday, we end up having retail sales. Sometimes we get good moves for retail sales. We'll see. And then Friday, there's nothing, right? So pretty much for the bulk of the week, it looks like we've got USD news events every single day, which we love. We love having news events every single day. Definitely going to be a lot of volatility, a lot of opportunity for us to take advantage of next week, right? So I think USD is definitely going to be the focus as it normally is, and then we'll go from there, right? Now, let's talk about price action wise on dollar, right? So price action wise on dollar, we did end up getting this low here get tapped into, and we did end up getting a really nice buy from that level, right? That being said, right, it didn't hold, right? That low did not hold. I did think that if we were going to see order flow happen, that likely was going to happen from this low. The fact that we saw that low hold but then break the way that it did, I do think that most likely this is not going to be an order flow type of play. I do think that the most likely scenario is scenario two that we were talking about last week, which is that we do end up getting a sweep, of lows before going ahead and getting our next impulse to the upside, right? So what could be some key moments that could potentially make this happen? I do think, like I said, CPI can potentially be a key moment that this can happen. I think it's already set up for it. I think if we just consolidate here for a couple of days, or maybe we start the manipulation, but then the final manipulation happens at CPI, that would be for me the cleanest way that we can really see this play out, right? If it doesn't play out that way, obviously we'll have to readjust. If like we see the sweep happen right away, then to be honest, I probably won't be into it. I mostly want to see this timing align with CPI or maybe with Monday New York, but we'll see. We'll see how it ends up playing out for it. Because again, sometimes we do see the lows of the news events happen the day before as opposed to the day of the news event. It all depends on the situation. But what I will say right now is that this looks heavily, heavily, heavily like an enticing phase. So I think that's where we're at right now. Even though we did have previous institutional candles here, here, and here, I do think that as a whole, with the way that price action is behaving inside of these levels, it's not looking like we're really getting big strength from these levels, right? Yes, we had this big buy here, but like it's not looking very strong to me, right? Even now, like with recent price action, we've got this liquidity buildup. We have price sweeping that liquidity buildup and engulfing all the way back down, right? So now that we have that and we have equal lows with here and here, right? Like we do see what I will mention, and we did mention this last week during our New York session calls, was that yes, it did just barely sweep here. If we look at this wick here, it just barely swept that low, right? As you guys can see right here, just barely got below. For me, that's not enough, right? I don't think that's enough to really, really see that be the bottom here for dollar. I think we're going to see a proper wipeout, and that's personally what I'm looking for, right? So I think that right now we're just in that enticing phase, right? Most likely getting retracements back up and then going ahead and selling off towards this level here. I personally would love to see us, like I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, get below 97.35. Right, that's going to be my ideal area. So you guys can mark up that level on your own charts and see what ends up happening from there. But I do think that that's where the liquidity is, right? Obviously, on top of this, these lows here, this is the major point of liquidity, which is 97.63, right? There is a chance we don't get down to that 97.3 level and we just sweep there. But regardless, this low is not holding. I don't believe these lows are holding. So go ahead and look for a sweep. And see if we can now get the long, man, that we've been waiting for on dollar. I just think this has just been a little bit of a slower reaccumulation than we're used to, and we're just going to get a full schematic and then push up towards the highs of the distribution, which is going to be around 102, right? So this is going to be a potential swing and swing idea, and I do think that this coming week might be the beginning of that swing idea, right? We might just get the beginning of that swing happening, right now on dollar, right? So fingers crossed that that can be the case, but I do think one more wipeout is in the cards for this week. So just keep an eye out for that. Trade safe, try to conserve your ammo until we can really get, a proper sweep on lows. And then once we do get that, I think we have a pretty good probability of pushing up towards the highs. So we shall see. We shall see. So that's my forecast there on dollar officially, right? I do want to see, like I said, sweep down below, right? Hopefully we can get retracements and, order flow to start to push us up. And then from there, potentially targeting this high, getting back into the rest of the gap here at 99.35, right? So we're going down to 97.15 or so. Or sorry, 0.35. Go down from 97.35 all the way up to 99.35. Kind of funny how that plays out. But yeah, cool. So we got dollar there, right? Now let's go into EU for currencies. Now for currency, like we were saying, right? Last week we did want to see this high get swept. We were saying that it was interesting how, dollar was in a very different place compared to EU. As we can see that dollar is again like this low here. We've already basically tapped into that low, which is the same as this EU relative high right here, right? This high on EU is the same as this low on dollar, right? As you guys know, these two pairs are very closely inversely correlated. So typically the highs and lows are very similar. And so the issue now, not the issue, but the discrepancy that we're seeing between the two, the divergence that we're seeing between the two is the fact that EU, again, is only all the way down here compared to that high versus with dollar, we're already all the way back down there. So I think that most likely scenario, like not most likely, but I do think that a possible scenario could be that EU ends up getting one more drive up above this high, take out that 4-hour wick, give us a proper institutional candle inside of this level. And I think that EU will respect this high while dollar will end up running the lows, right? and then ending up continuing to go up. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because now we're going to have a frame of reference there for Euro USD to play off of. It's possible that we get like, again, like I think that the second scenario, it could be that we get a push a little bit higher and we actually do run this high, right? And then we go. But honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards this actually being a potential high. So that's what I want to see. Again, we're just going to see how the two of them really align. Like when we do get dollar to push down below these lows, where's EU going to be, right? And that's really going to tell us a little bit more of the story in terms of, all right, can we see this high hold? Can we not? Right? And if we don't, obviously see it hold, then again, we're just gonna have to wait for a whole nother setup up here, a whole nother institutional candle, a whole nother, order flows start to play out, right? So that's really that for EU, right? So again, like I said, just to repeat myself, either scenario one, we run this high, we hold this one, and then we sell off, or scenario two, we run that high as well, and then I do think again, regardless, we will create a lower high and then sell off from there, right? So yeah, I do like the way that price is looking a lot though in general for EU. And I think that if we are going to look to buy dollar, I do think that EU is going to be the best one to take advantage of that because EU looks the weakest compared to all of these, right? Because obviously if we want to see dollar strength, then that's going to be Euro USD weakness and XXX USD weakness. And I do think that Euro USD, like I said, looks the weakest compared to these, right? So we'll see. We'll see how it ends up going, but that does look good to me right now. So that's EU. All right, let's go into GU, NU, AU, all those, right? So GU, I think that we have liquidity buildup right here. I think that we are potentially seeing a distribution, but I think we need to see one more high. So personally, for me, kind of similar to dollar, I want to see this high break, see if we can get institutional candles up here, see if we can get order flow down here. Up here, I mean, to go ahead and bring us down, towards these levels, towards these equal lows here as well, right? I think this is the beginning of the distribution, so most likely that's going to be where we're going to target when we do end up going to the downside. So with GU, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed with GU. For another high and then another lower high, and then we continue to, order flow to the downside there, right? All right, cool. That's GU. Now we got NU. All right, so here's NU going ahead and pushing up towards these levels here, right? I think with NU, I mean, like I said, we do have this liquidity buildup that we have swept, right? We've had the order flow start to push us down. Out of anything, this could maybe be something that could hold, but honestly, I'm more leaning towards NU actually making another high as well. I do think that across the board, most likely we will get, again, if we do get a sweep down here on dollar, we'll probably get that new high there with a sweep on EU. We'll probably get the new high there with the sweep on GU, right? I think GU is the most likely that we're going to get this sweep because GU has been really strong. So we'll probably get another impulse higher, and then hopefully from there we can see price reverse from that level. That's personally what I would want to see, right? And same thing with NU, right? So that's what I want to see, right? Again, hopefully a little bit higher and then a sell-off, right? So potentially even getting up and above this high here, I think could be really good because then not only are we manipulating this recent high, but then we're also manipulating a high from the past, right? We get back up into an extreme area like this previous distribution, and then maybe that can be our incentive to, from there, maybe sell off and see the flip on a lot of these USD pairs, right? Because again, we've been having this pullback, right? But I do think that most likely this will be engulfed back to the upside and we will get towards 102. So that's the bias I'm sticking with for this week as well. So I think that NU will probably end up doing the same idea, right? But most likely be going above this level here, right? So there's NU. All right. Now what else do we got? We got UCAD, right? We spoke about UCAD already. UCAD looks very strong, right? Like we said, from last week, we called out the potential of this being a spring. We did have a pullback back into that spring and then an impulse up. And now that we've had that full impulse up, we also have all this liquidity that's sitting above, right? So I do think that most likely, again, like maybe we'll get a pullback down, but eventually we're going to get, I think us go towards these highs. So if we can hold these highs and get the pullback back down into this level, I think that UCAD could also be a really good play, for us to go long up into those highs, right? So fingers crossed, but that's personally what I would like to see would be a nice pullback. If not, if we just end up holding order flow, let's say, and like, pulling back into this level and then buying up, then yeah, a little bit less likely that I'm going to be personally like involved in something like that, right? So if that's the case, then, then that's it. Then that's all, right? We'll just probably just won't be a part of it, right? So that's UCAD, UCHEF, right? Like we said, pay attention to this level here, right? We have a really good sweep on lows at this level that really created a new high, and this is an unmitigated area, right? So I do think that USD Chef getting down into this level is likely, like we said last week. So I'm still sticking to that same story, and I want to see this head towards that level. All right. UJ, same idea, right? Like we said, again, I'm still gonna stay bullish on this bad boy, even though we did have JPYs kind of just sell off like crazy across the board. So I'm still staying bullish on it. I do think that again, we just had a very high volume low, right? Happened right here. We have a lower volume low that's happened there. So either one, we end up getting that being like a low and just ends up just being like a type 2 schematic, or we can get a nice classic type 1, get a lower low here, right? Get a much lower volume point there, let's say something like that. So we can really see that full divergence playing out, and then give us a potential long up towards 161, right? So that's what I'm saying for UJ as well. All right. Now metals. All right. Metals look great. For buys personally. With the way that this happened last week, we did miss this bottom because we did want to see price get a little bit further down into this level. Nevertheless, I do think that it is potentially a good idea to look for pullbacks to then go ahead and go long, right? If we leave this high here intact, right, which is the beginning of the liquidity to the downside, then most likely and we actually end up coming down, then most likely we're going to get that next impulse up towards that level. So I don't know if we can necessarily reach this 1 hour candle. That would be the most ideal. If not, we're going to look inside of this imbalance to see if we can get reactions there on gold. But I do think that this low here where I took buys from last week can potentially get swept out. And then we end up again heading towards that extreme high right there, right? To go ahead and see again, gold just absolutely boom it to the upside. So we'll see how it goes, right? But I think that gold now is looking a lot more bullish to me. I think that the potential of this being a reaccumulation has become a lot more real, right? Before when we were talking about the potential reaccumulation last week, it was just kind of speculation. But I think now, again, with the way that this looks. Like the way that we got below this level, we couldn't really hold below this level super well. We're doing it with sweeps. I do think that that'll end up being a bottom for us to, boom it back up, and then maybe we pull back and continue long from there. So we'll see what ends up going on with gold, but I do think that it does look good to continue to long. I know, like I said, some people are looking for shorts all the way down to 4K. I'm skeptical of it still, personally. I think that the order flow is still holding. I think there's not enough evidence for us to say that gold is really going to break down. So if we do end up, again, breaking below order flow, right, we end up breaking this low or we end up breaking that low, then that's going to be like, all right, yeah, now we're more confirmed for, gold to potentially hit 4K. But at the moment, we're just holding order flow. Even with this push to the downside here, this looks more like manipulation than it does look like weakness to me, right? We even got back into a previous order block, right? This is really, again, that push to the upside that really brought us up to new highs. So I do think that seeing this pullback is not necessarily like bearish for gold when it comes to like this push to the downside here. So that's my opinion. But again, we'll see. We'll see how it all ends up going if the evidence changes and the evidence changes. But as of right now, the evidence for gold is still bullish the same way that we were thinking last week, right? Now, same thing with silver, but silver looks a lot more bullish. Silver actually has pushed a lot further. So we'll see how this one ends up playing out. I mean, realistically, there are these tiny little pullbacks. I wouldn't really want to play off of these pullbacks. I'd like to see them get swept out, like levels like this one, and this one, right? If we can actually get below all those, I mean, obviously that's going to be a very perfect world if we do get a big pullback like that for us to potentially long from. A man can dream, a man can hope. We'll see. But again, like I said, silver is looking a lot more bullish. So even if gold does pull back into these levels, right, there is a chance that silver doesn't, and silver holds a little bit better, and maybe just ends up, taking like just this low or like, just that one or whatever. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up going. But again, still bullish on silver the same way that I am bullish on gold. Sorry. So yeah, so from there, again, reaccumulation would be nice for us to get down there and then long. But if not, then again, we're just bullish in general. We'll see how it goes. So that's gold, that's silver. All right, we're gonna tap into indices now. So indices, again, we had a distribution last week here, right? Really nice distribution. Price takes out the low of the distribution, right? As we can see, right, we have a nice 30-minute institutional candle there, right? Price barely sweeps it as well, and then we end up going long. So I do think that this looks like a reaccumulation, right? Let me make this a reaccumulation zone here. So as of right now, evidence is still bullish, right? There's really nothing other to say other than that, right? We're still looking bullish. We just had a reaccumulation. We just started booming up through that reaccumulation. I think that most likely we are still bullish, right? Same thing with S&P, right? We do see that we broke below there, but again, doesn't really matter. We're still overall bullish. We do see price sweeping right there, right? Before we end up having, this new high get created, right? US 30, same thing, right? We have this high, price sweeps that high, and then we come down, but this does look like we do have some reaccumulation potential, right? Same with this here, right? It does look like actually, yeah, last week we could have had a really nice buy here, to be honest. This would have been beautiful. Oh, I don't know why we didn't take this buy. What were we doing? Let's see here. This was okay, Monday. That's why I don't trade Mondays. So Mondays ended up giving us a really nice pullback down into that level, but didn't end up holding for us there in terms of like giving us a real long there for the next day or anything like that. So I didn't end up taking it. So it is what it is, but yeah, potentially we can still see that order flow hold, right? Again, we do have relatively equal lows. It looks like that's sitting there now. Maybe that ends up being the move, right? At the moment, still very bullish price action. So that's what I could be looking for there on U30. All right. So we did dollar, we did currencies, we did metals, we did indices. All right, we got to do crypto. And then I'm going to look in the chat because I know there was a community request there for a pair. So I'm gonna go here on BTC, right? So now BTC again, still bullish, right? Still just absolutely booming. I do think that over here where we had our previous, manipulation, right? That ended up bringing us down, right? That could be what we could be looking to revisit, right? So I do think honestly, BTC I'm still bullish on, probably above 85 is coming, right? Which is blessed, right? Which is a blessing. So we'll see how it all goes. But again, like I've been saying with crypto, I do think that it is very bullish. Especially since the war started, it's been very bullish, and we're just waiting for that to happen for us, right? ETH, same thing, right? We already spoke about ETH, right? I do think that this level can hold, and we can potentially see ETH go towards a new high, right? We do have this yellow box that I have here, which is the institutional candle from there, but I don't think that that's going to hold super long term. So we'll see how ETH goes, but that's pretty much the idea there for crypto. All right. Let me see here. Can you check out GEJ? Looks like a perfect type 3 distro on the daily, but no institutional candle for the UTAD. Okay, let's go ahead and check that. So GBP, JPY. Okay, for the daily. Okay. Yeah. So we got this daily up candle here, right? Price getting above that level. It does look like we had a little bit of a distribution sitting in this level here. That being said, that could easily turn into an accumulation the same way that it did for UJ. Yeah, look at this manipulation there as well, right? We have these equal lows, right? Price sweeps below those lows before coming up. We end up holding this level. Personally, I think that I'd rather look at the longs here. It is possible that getting back into here, we do end up buying, right? Like somewhere back in there or something. But I think I'd rather lean to the buy side. So most ideal buy scenario would be these two lows here being swept out, right? Holding on to this one and then going long. That's going to be the most ideal scenario. Will it happen like that? Tough to say. What do you think would be a smart swing for XAU USD over the next week? So like I said with gold, right? My biggest thing is I'm still bullish on it. So if you can look for longs, right? This is really the zone that I was looking for was for us to really, I'm really just expecting us to get below at least 46.60. Once we do get below 46.60, I'm going to start looking for buys, right? Same thing with silver, right? I think if we do get below here, right, we can really look for buys there. But I do think gold is probably going to be the better option of the two because I think silver probably won't pull back as much. So I think gold getting back down into these levels could end up giving us a good, push to the upside. So yeah, we did look at this. You can check the recording on YouTube after this as well. And you can see if, like exactly what we said about this idea. But again, my main idea is head down below 46.60, right? Create a sweep, get down here into the imbalance, and then head towards 47.73, right? To go ahead and boom it up to that point of liquidity. All right, guys. So to me, market's looking good this week. I think that we're going to get a really good week. I think that we're going to keep a close eye on dollar and currencies. I think currencies are, for me, probably going to be the move. Maybe gold if we get that pullback. If not, then most likely it's going to be currencies for me. So I'm actually kind of excited for this week. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. So we'll see. We'll be back here in about a week, and we'll see if I'm right or not, as always, right? But that's pretty much the end of Wyckoff Sundays episode 16, guys. All right. I'll see you guys on the next live stream on Tuesday. Yeah, no sleeping in. And yeah, we'll kill it. We're gonna kill it this week. I'm definitely really, really excited. Because now it does look like dollar is starting to shape up as that enticing phase. So soon that manipulation phase is gonna come in hot. So I'm ready for it. All right, guys. So much love, much appreciation. Right? Episode 16 done, 4 months done. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.